Thank you, Michael, and community. This is an official meeting of the budget process. This is our public hearing. So a long time ago, school board member Newkirk told me, when I'm doing a budget presentation, every budget has a story. So I would say the story of this budget is using the resources we have to maximally support our students. As we go through this budget presentation, you'll see that the board has made some incredibly difficult decisions in order to bring a budget to the community that supports our students, but also is fair to our taxpayers. Tonight, I'll be talking about district highlights, the district enrollment. I'll provide the enrollment by schools. I'll provide enrollment through projection. I'll provide enrollment by town. I'll provide you financial information, and we will review the warrants. So, district highlights. We are a very strong district academically. Our SAT scores in the aggregate are one of the highest in the state. Our math scores at 64% proficient across the district. That compares to 37% for the entire state of New Hampshire. Our SAS testing and our SAT testing continue to be some of the highest in the state of New Hampshire. Our most recent college placement rate was 83%, 67% entering four-year colleges, 12% entering a two-year college program, 4% are entering a gap year for technical program, and unusual for us, a very high number of our students have chosen military or work, so that percentage is at 17%. Our high school graduation rate is still one of the highest in the state. The most recent data is 98.58% of our students complete our program. When we look at our SAT and we compare it to the state and national, you'll find that Oyster River continues to be higher than both the state as a whole and also the nation as a whole. In any given year, we are always outperforming the state and the country. Going back to the story of having a budget that lives within our means, we have, as a school board, as a district, our teachers, our administrators, really developed a rich program around supporting our children. So the previous slides give you a sense of how we're doing academically, but that really doesn't tell the whole story. The whole story is that our children are still struggling post-COVID with with re-entering school. Our administrators and our teachers have done really a terrific job of reintegrating children into school. Our major concern is the pressures that our children are under because we are a high expectation district, both at the family level as well as at the school level. And so we have increased our professional development around suicide prevention and increased it to include trauma-informed teaching. We've embedded a host of social emotional learning curriculum K through 12 in order to make sure we're supporting our children, our students, beyond the academics, executive functioning skills, reacclimation, and not every child, despite the academic performance of the district as a whole, is as successful as we want them to be. So the school board, administration, and teachers have been using a multi-tiered support system for our students who need help academically and behaviorally. And what that simply means is our teachers are our first line in terms of addressing student needs, but when those needs exceed what a classroom teacher can do with 17 to 22 kids, we then turn to a model where we are providing group help or even individual help to make sure that all of our students have the supports they need. We continue to think about our students as individuals, not a collection of numbers. And by doing that, each of the principals in this room could tell you who their struggling students are. They could tell you the plans that they have to support those students in continued success. And so one of the nicest things about Oyster River is the idea that we truly are personalizing our education for our kids. And in terms of the high school and middle school This continues into the structure of the master schedules that we have at both buildings. Principal Noe and Principal Richard have worked tirelessly to align their schedules for the first time in the district's history so that we can take the greatest opportunity in providing flexible learning time as well as advisory for our students, and also take advantage of the each school's strengths. So we have youngsters leaving the middle school to advance their mathematics. We have classroom music teachers going between two buildings. So because these two buildings are on co-drive, it really makes for opportunity to support our children even more than we have in the past, given this new facility. Speaking of this new facility, thanks to the community support, overwhelming community support, this building opened on February 28th of last year. Hard to say that it's last year already. And the fields were finished late summer, early fall, and so the project is complete and is living up to our expectations of a school that's built around the academic needs of our children. Also, the fact that it's a much safer environment for our kids, and then finally, that it is one of the most sustainable buildings, perhaps in the country. We're still waiting for that data, but this building is net positive. Our goal was to be net neutral, but in the end, when we actually own all of the solar panels, we can say to the community that the building is producing more energy than it uses. The most recent accolade for the building is we did get gold LEED certification, which is incredible. That is a very high standard for a public school. And you know, just the fact that it's a much nicer environment for our students and provided Mr. Richard and the teachers a real opportunity to correct a lot of the inadequacies of the previous building and build a much stronger core schedule. Another major project that was finished in this previous year was the tennis courts. The tennis courts are done, and except for the perimeter, as you can see, that needs to be finished up. That will be finished. That's just cosmetic. That'll be done in the spring. So we're very proud to say that we have 4 tennis courts when once we had 3, and all the athletic facilities are now on the same side of the road with the ball fields and the track and so forth. And we think that's a better model for our students. Oyster River is very fortunate to have the caliber of teaching staff it has. You know, we sing our praises to our staff every day. We're very, very fortunate to have so many skilled educators. Here are some of the recognitions that have happened in the past year. Alita Carter was named New Hampshire PE Teacher of the Year. She works here in this building. Val Wolson was named New Hampshire Social Studies Teacher of the Year. She too works in this building. Erica Cook is a math teacher, was recognized as Teacher of the Year from the Dover Chamber of Commerce. Erica works at the high school. Kathy Stetson was recognized as the business teacher, semifinalist for the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year, an incredible honor for her. Sean Peschel was recognized as the ELO Extended Learning Opportunity Coordinator. Sue Lyford, the technology integrator, was recognized as the 2022 New Hampshire State Finalist of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics. And Michael Hope, our ORMS nurse, was recognized as the New Hampshire Healthcare Hero Runner-Up. So it's a sampling of what happens with the staff across the spectrum. I just wanted to make sure the community knew that this is the kind of quality that you can expect from our teaching staff. When we talk about academics, that's one element of our success, but the students themselves are also recognized. Our middle school students were the top robotics program in New Hampshire, pretty incredible. They went on to the World Championships in Dallas. Our high school celebrated the 2021 state championships in Division II golf, in girls cross country, and our unified soccer team was state champion team. Unified soccer is the combination of special needs children and typical children, so it's particularly proud for the district to be recognized in that area. 35 of them are Hamlet students, walked, danced, cheered their way down Town Hall Road as the return to Madbury Day occurred this September. Sarah Farwell, who is our math science specialist at Massway, hosted the GLOBE Project, an international scientific research program. And a number of our music educators went on to represent our district at the States. So combined with academic accomplishments through test scores, we also have accomplishments through recognitions and competitions. So just shifting to the district enrollment, I think the story here is one of consistency. The rejections are all in the 2,000 plus range. You're seeing some variations as we go through time. You'll see a dip at the middle school for a few years, and then that projection is bound to go up based on what the reports are sharing. So we've been in a pretty steady place as a district. In terms of the schools, the elementary schools in particular certainly settled from where they were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, Moharem, it was over 400 students, over-enrolled and crowded and in portables. And as we operate this year, we're seeing 297 students there, which David reminds me is capacity. And Massway is at a very comfortable 328 students. The middle school here is designed for a maximum of 670 students. As it was designed, we have 647 students, and the high school is at 846 students, of which 174 of those students are tuition students. If you wanted to know how the relationship is between the three towns in relation to enrollment, member towns, you're seeing a closure of enrollment between Durham and Lee, and Madbury has been pretty steady in its relationship to the other two towns. As you can see here, this demonstrates the 171 students we have from Barrington, and we have a few other straggler tuition students that come in. So as you look at the bottom number, you can see the total enrollment, and it's, pretty consistent. So this is where the miracles happen. So the board had to face a number of pretty major expenditure drivers. A 3% increase in health insurance was $180,000. Our guild agreement for year 4 of 5 is $701,000. Our RESPA agreement in year 2 is $75,000 plus, and ORPAS agreement in year 2 is $131,958. The ORA agreement was $69,113. We had a net on our bond of $107,298. We put $18,000 in this budget to buy the solar array from the maintenance building, and so then the savings that are occurring through that solar array return to the district. That's the same methodology we used on this building. There's a massive solar array in the parking lot and over the building that was funded by private investors. And 5 years from now, the district should be in a position to buy out those investors, so the savings from the solar array return to the taxpayers. We had to include, or we just chose to include, a 4th counselor at the middle school. We had funded that under ESSA. That grant ends. And we also funded a tutor position, going back to how we're helping students. Having tutors to help them in small groups when they're struggling with learning has been a huge advantage, K through 12. Initially, the board was looking at a budget based on expenditures, and they asked me and the team to produce a budget that grew by 3%, 3.62%, or 4.32%. So we presented that budget, and the way that the budget process works, we really don't know the impact of the state funding for schools until we're well into the budget process, and this is what we learned. We learned that our district was going to receive $847,318 less than last year. And that put the board in a deep dive into priorities. What could they do to reduce, not have a budget of 3%, but have a budget that's half of that. And ultimately, the board had to consider some pretty significant cuts. I want to share with you that those cuts we were trying to avoid impact on students as much as we possibly could. I think the board did a great job in doing that. But what we ultimately decided to do, what the board ultimately decided to do, was offer a retirement incentive to try to capture savings and personnel costs. We did not fill 2 special ed para positions. We did not fill 1 technology position. We cut paving out of Moheramet, and we cut carpeting at 1 library. So those are pretty significant cuts, and the reason the board went down that path is because if we had produced a budget of even 3%, it would have crippled our taxpayers in our 3 towns. So this just kind of gives you a sense of where we've been in terms of budget increases over the years. So the proposed 23-24 budget is actually the 3rd lowest percentage we've presented in 12 years. It is one of the lowest we've ever presented, and you can see the lowest ones were in the beginning of 13 and 14, where we really had to keep the budget low. This is equivalent to that time period at the beginning of 12, 13, and 14, where resources were stretched. That's how I would describe this budget. Resources are being stretched, and priorities were given to supporting students. So the general fund, as we sit tonight, is proposed at $51,679,884. Our school nutrition account is proposed to be $890,214, and our Fund 22-23 grants are proposed to be $641,000. The impact, imagine this, of a budget that only increased 1.5% is really significant in Durham this year. And I would say not really significant, but significant in Lee and Madbury. Part of what happened in Durham is the loss of valuation combined with the loss of state funding. So the impact this year is heavier in Durham, but it's not terribly different than Madbury. This budget is one of the tightest we've put together, and in spite of that, it still has a relative impact, estimated tax impact on each town. That kind of gives you the reason why the board decided to shrink the budget not grow the budget as much as they had anticipated. This is a history of projections and actuals. This is really important because every time Sue Caswell, our business manager, gets up and talks about the impact on taxes, she emphasizes over and over and over again that it's a projection. We won't know the actual impact on our budget until the fall. So we are trying to predict what that might be. And when you look at the projections versus the actual, Sue Caswell does an extremely good job of getting very, very close. So credit to her and her mathematical mind that she can do this work and come as close as she does. Should the budget fail in March, then we would have to cut an additional $257,188 from the proposed budget. But with the general fund and Fund 21, 22, and 23, so the general fund is what impacts taxes. The other revenues are outside of local taxes. So $51,488,860 is the general fund budget, and that's the one that impacts the tax rate. Food service is self-sustaining. The federal funds come in and they're utilized to support students, and then there occasionally are special revenues, and Sue has estimated those next year to be $41,000. So total default budget for next year would be $52,953,910, and that's $257,188 less than what we have proposed. So this year is kind of an interesting year as well when it comes to warrants. There literally are 2 warrants. There's not 5 warrants, there's not 7 warrants. Article 1 and 2 are elections. Article 3 is the omnibus warrant that the community votes on as to whether they're going to support the proposed budget or not. It includes all of the numbers that I've shared earlier, and so that is an article that the community sees every year. And then the second article is to set aside $125,000 to support the solar array purchase in this building 5 years from now. So what we're doing is trying to build up that account so it doesn't become a significant portion of the budget. It'll be there set aside for the purchase of the solar array in this building and not be a burden to a successive board or school superintendent, because the funds will be set aside. And that is from, that's from funds that were unexpended, not raised by taxes. So, most important thing is we have a number of meetings on the budget. This is, the most important one in terms of setting off the series. I'll be meeting with the 3 towns, Madbury on January 13th this week, Lee on January 23rd, and Durham on February 6th. We also will be having the second round of budget proposal, and this is here again. It's the annual deliberative session. It's February 7th. This is a critically important meeting in order to move the budget forward to the voters on March 14th. Durham will be voting at the high school from 7 to 7. Lee will be voting at the safety complex from 7 to 7. And Madbury will be voting at the Madbury town from 11 to 7. So at this point, I'd be willing to answer questions, and that completes my presentation.